I'm Andrew Scheps and I make records. I started off as a brass player, French horn, and then trumpet, and was okay, not great. And I knew pretty early on that I was not going to be a musician. And I loved rock bands, and I was not going to be in a rock band even if I was great on French horn or trumpet. So I knew then and there that there was a little bit of a disconnect. And then through the son of some friends of my parents who worked at a studio in New York, doing mostly, I think, jingles and voiceover and that kind of thing. But I walked into that studio and saw a console for the first time, and that was it. I was always a geek. I liked when you push a button, something happens. I did lights and sound for bands in high school and things, but that was the real moment where it's like, okay, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I knew in an instant. I mean, I guess creativity in my job is hearing something in your head and then figuring out how to make it happen. And most of the time I'm working on other people's stuff. So I've got the raw material from somewhere else, and then I've got my job, which as a mixer is just to shape it sonically and just try and amplify what's great about what's already there. But I think the creative side is sort of deciding which things to highlight and then how to do it. And I think that the journey has just been understanding more and more and more that that's all that matters, and all the rest of it along the way doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter if it's a good sounding mix. If it feels great, it is great. And if it doesn't matter how good it sounds or bad it sounds. Nothing matters if it's not right and it's not about the music. I've always been excited about the music, and that's it. The industry has always got good stuff and bad stuff, but the music is always what's amazing and new and inspiring. It pays to be a little bit of a historian in whatever you do. You know, you should be aware of not only who you came across and were lucky enough to maybe meet or work with or whatever. Obviously reading credits, which is now incredibly difficult, but you can, if you do a little bit of research, find out who did what and who worked with whom. And I think that was actually one of the main reasons I wanted to do the interview series I started when the first lockdown happened, the Andrew Talks to Awesome People, which started off as sort of hour-long interviews, and it was people I knew to sort of feel it out. But it became, I mean, some of those interviews are 5.5 hours long because I wanted to get everything. And obviously in 5.5 hours you come nowhere near getting everything out of somebody, but you get past all of the questions they're always asked. I'd always be very careful to frame questions in the way that they usually answer the questions, so they couldn't say the stuff they're used to saying, because we all fall into patterns on things. And to really just get down into what made them tick. But what was great is a lot of them talked about their mentors. Even Al Schmidt talking about how he started. And he started in the 50s. So to be able to go back basically to the beginning of commercial record production and get that story, and also how many branches of it there are. You sort of think you know all the people who make records, but you only know the people who make the records that you know. And there are all of these gigantic families of engineers and producers who've influenced each other down the years, but there's sometimes no crosstalk with any of the other branches. So it's great to just explore it all. It's hugely important to listen widely. I mean, one of the things it's become sort of a thing that I say is that when you're younger, you gravitate towards a certain genre of music because it's very much a social thing. You found your tribe and you love that music and you hate everything else. But as you get older and that is less of a social pressure and you can start to sort of analyze what you like, very few people like everything in a genre. You like certain bands much more than you like other bands, even in a very narrow genre. And if you start to analyze it, you'll see that, like, I like dark, I like minor, I like low instruments, I like strong emotions. I do not like happy, I don't like light, I don't like major stuff. And that goes for every single genre. I can find stuff that I like in almost every genre and stuff that I hate in every genre. And when you realize that, then you can really start exploring. You'll hear 5 seconds of something, and instead of like, well, I don't understand those instruments, you don't care what it is. and you find out what it is, and all of a sudden it'll open up just another gigantic box of music that you didn't know existed. You have to know your tools inside out. Like you can't, if you're in a gig that requires you to know Pro Tools, you can't just say, well, I'm a Logic guy. Because you're there to use Pro Tools and you need to know it really, really, really well. Otherwise, you're just slowing down the creative process. So know the technical side so well that then you can be creative. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to try and work with people at the same point in their career as you. And I've said this a million times before. So but it's really important. If you're just starting out, find bands that are just starting out, and then you get to learn together, and everybody is cool, and they're on the same page, and there are a lot of conversations you don't have to have, and you're also not going to stay home beating yourself up about work you're not getting, which you're not actually ready for. And there's nothing that will make up for practice. It just, I mean, I don't know about the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing. I don't know if you can put a number on it, but the more you do, the better you get. I still feel like I'm not that great, and things take me a long time, and I sometimes completely miss things. And when I listen back the next day, like, how the hell did I let that happen? And so that's a lifelong thing. You're never going to be like, oh, got it, now I'm good. There are people who it seems like that, but they're just more talented. And it's really, really hard work, and don't give that up. Always keep that in mind and spend as much time as you can just doing the thing. AI, it's always going to be very biased towards the data it's trained on. So I think that the technology and some of the software that's being written is amazing. Like all the isotope stuff, there's Acusonics have done some amazing things to sort of unmix stuff and things like that. It's really incredible, but if you try to extend it to things like songwriting, I would argue, though there's some K-pop stuff happening in that realm already, but any of the more creative side of it, mixing, mastering, you can, I mean, there are plenty of online mastering places now that are all based on algorithms, but what they're based on is someone saying, like, okay, this is what good songs sound like when they're mastered. But what always moves things forward is the thing that's nothing like anything you've heard before. Beck Odelay scared people. AC/DC Back in Black scared people because it was new, and that's what was great. And you'll never get that with machine learning. It's impossible. I mean, that goes against what machine learning is. So I think some of the tools are really, really incredible, but I think if you just let them do their thing, then the reality of, yeah, that thing could take your job is true because you just let it. But where I think it's really helpful, especially for younger people, is to use something like Ozone. Let it listen to your track, suggest a bunch of stuff, and then rip that apart. See what it's doing in every little thing. Try reordering stuff. Figure out what you like and what you don't like, and train yourself to do what it did. And it's an amazing teaching tool. But in terms of like just throwing a bunch of notes at a computer and having it make a record for you, I would argue that it's just going to be a bunch of boring records. That's the thing. It's easy for me to say, well, machine learning, and sort of discount it. But when you think about the data set these things are being trained on now, they are the entire output of everybody on the planet since things could be recorded and documented. So it's extraordinary. But I think when you watch some of the things, like if you ask, ChatGPT is an easy thing to reference because it just is there and everybody's heard of it now and it's exploded on the scene. But like if you ask it to write an essay for you, it will be different every time, but it's never going to come to a conclusion that no one else has thought of. Like that will never, ever happen. So to be able to generate music, I think is really interesting, and I think has great applications, like in the gaming world, to be able to seed it with composers' seeds of music and then have that generate a dynamic score while you're playing a game. I mean, the possibilities for that kind of thing are really incredible. But if you think that you're going to get new creative outcomes, I would say you only would if there's a bug, because by definition, machine learning can't create new stuff. It's just amalgamating a gigantic amount of existing stuff. and I'll be proven wrong.